relief package, whatever you want to call it, has now passed through the House of Representatives. That Senate voted on last night. The House passed it today. Looks like Trump's going to sign it into law a little bit later this afternoon, or maybe I guess that's around this time because I think it was around 4 or 5 p.m. Eastern time, and I'm on the West Coast. It's 2 p.m., so it might have already been signed into law by Trump. And, obviously, this relief package is very questionable on on a lot of levels, frankly, and does not nearly give the citizens of the U.S. the type of relief and support that they need during this just complete economic meltdown that we are experiencing here in the U.S. due to the coronavirus pandemic. So families, or I should say individuals who made less than $75,000 a year in either 2018 or 2019 tax returns will get $1,200 once. And for married couples, that's, I believe, if you make under $150,000 during those two or one of those years, then you get $2,400. And then, let's see, and for each kid in your household, you get an additional $500. And then this payment, this $1,200 payment, I believe, phases out completely if you made under or over $99,000, in one of those years on your tax returns, whichever one I guess they were calculating it on. And again, this shouldn't be means tested because let's say, you made on your 2019 tax return, you made, 100 grand, but let's say you got, laid off early March and you were still living paycheck to paycheck, this isn't going to help you out at all. And then Bernie got them to expand the unemployment insurance to cover part-time workers, people in the gig economy, so people working for things like Uber or DoorDash, things like that. And then so I believe it's 100%, of your wages, I think up to $70,000 a year for 4 months. Obviously, it needs to be longer than 4 months, but that's something that Bernie fought and was able to get expanded, as well as the fact that in the original GOP legislation from the Senate, it was people who were making no money, or I guess, well, that's still the same. People with incomes under 50,000 were actually going to get less, so they pushed back on that, and it's everybody who made under 75,000 gets that $1,200 check and $500 additional dollars for any child you have in your household. Obviously, this isn't going to do nearly enough to help people out during this really just crazy and stressful and chaotic times that we've been thrown into due to this coronavirus, and how it's just completely throwing a wrench into the economy. We're definitely in a recession right now and potentially going towards a Great Depression type scenario. One-time check of $1,200 isn't going to help much, frankly, and not to mention the facts that these checks aren't going to get to people for 3 weeks at least from today. So that puts you in the middle of April after people's rent checks are due, car notes are due, they still got to put food on the table, they still got to put gas in their car, they still got to be able to, pay these everyday expenses. And, with the fact that, we had record numbers of people file for unemployment last week, 3.3 million, when the previous record was under 700,000 in 1982. A one-time check of $1,200 3 weeks from now is not going to help, a lot of people, and it's just, really sad. And, honestly, we need at least $2,000 a month, like Bernie's proposing, for each individual person in the U.S. through the duration of this crisis. We need to cancel all student loan debt. We need Medicare for all. We need to greatly, expand, the Defense Production Act. Trump has really been dragging his feet on that because he was trying to protect big business interests. We need we need more help for small business. There are some provisions in this plan where small businesses are able to access $350 billion in forgivable loans. They have to meet certain requirements, but they were actually saying that it needed to actually be closer to $1.5 trillion for businesses under 500 employees for the next 3 months. So, I mean, and then, you have the fact that U.S. Airlines is already talking about laying off people when they were one of the companies who's getting the $50 billion in bailouts from the government. And then just the fact that a lot of other countries have temporarily paused rent and mortgage payments, more specifically mortgage payments, but rent payments need to be paused during this time because, we have potentially some economists are saying we could reach 30% unemployment levels. How are we supposed to expect people to pay their rent, pay their mortgage, pay their car notes, all these, expenses that people have when we're experiencing record levels of job loss right now? The economy is just completely tanking, and some people I should say are gonna get this $1,200 check 3 weeks from now. That's not gonna help. The response is not nearly enough to meet the needs of the people in this really dire and just hugely disastrous situation that a lot of people are finding themselves in right now. Not to mention the fact, so 3 weeks from now, some people would be getting the $1,200, but that is only if you have a account on file with the IRS where they have your direct deposit info. If you're not one of those people, which I think a good chunk aren't from what I've been reading, then you're going to have to wait multiple weeks after that to get any money. And then also the fact, what about the people that didn't file for, didn't have a tax return, didn't have to file for taxes either because they had no income, because they made under a certain amount, or, they were maybe caregivers, unpaid caregivers, or they're part of the informal economy in some way, or they're undocumented folks, then, they're not going to get any help during these times. And obviously, those are some of the people and groups that would need this assistance the most. So it's just, again, really backwards and ridiculous. It's just not nearly enough. And then you have the fact that you're giving the corporations close to $500 billion and basically no strings attached money at this point, when we should have been using that to give to the actual people who need it, not these massive corporations that put themselves in those situations through things like stock buybacks to enrich themselves more, instead of actually having some cash on hand to help during an emergency situation that they find themselves in now. They always come back to the government for a handout, and they get as much as they ask for, no strings attached, when the U.S. people in the U.S. are getting, and it's not everybody get this one-time check 3 weeks from now. It's not going to help people now who are really, suffering and struggling. And when, rent and mortgage and car notes and all these other things become due the 1st of April, 4 days from now, what's going to happen to those people? It's going to be obviously more misery, more suffering, and it's obviously preventable. We could have, easily done what Rashida Tlaib, for example, Congressman, was it from Michigan, was proposing, basically having the U.S. Mint produce this, $2 trillion coin, I think was her idea. Everybody in the U.S. gets this prepaid debit card, $2,000 a month, and then $1,000 after. I think it should be, initially $2,000, and each month after $2,000, like Bernie was proposing. For ridiculous people who are concerned about the debt right now, that doesn't add anything to the debt, because the U.S. Mint would be, minting this money, wouldn't add anything to the debt. There's a lot of really, interesting solutions and ways that the government, those in power, could actually be implementing right now to help out the people who need it the most. Instead, for the most part, especially people within the Republican Party and to a good extent, Democratic leadership, at least initially, were really coming up with some just really corporate friendly, big corporation friendly, policies like that $500 billion slush fund that Mnuchin basically has discretion over, with supposedly there's some type of, oversight board or some type of solicitor general that's supposed to regulate that. Don't really honestly have a whole lot of faith in that. But again, legislative process should have first, addressed a bill that was concerned with people, helping people, through expanding unemployment insurance like Bernie was proposing, emergency UBI, at least $2K a month until this we're out of this economic depression, recession that we're in, canceling all student loan debt, not just for now, but in the future, canceling all, getting rid of it, adopting a Medicare for all system so people are able to get treated and tested for free, a rent freeze, a mortgage freeze, expanding food and nutrition assistance, all of these things. And, Bernie and, Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, there's actually some pretty good proposals out there of how the U.S. government should actually be treating this situation to help out people, and not just, the first thought, a lot of these politicians is how we can help out these huge, massive corporations in times of crisis, instead of how we can actually help out the average, everyday person or citizen in the U.S. So, I mean, yeah, it's just really, really frustrating at this point to see, how much, those in power are willing to bend over backwards to try to prop up these huge, massive corporations with basically no strings attached bailouts, when the U.S. taxpayer is only getting this $1,200 check once 3 weeks from now. And again, if you don't have your direct deposit info on file with the IRS, you're going to get that multiple weeks after that. Then the fact, again, like I mentioned, not everybody had income in 2018 or 2019, or they make below a certain level, so they weren't able to, file taxes. And, it's just really, I don't know, really weird time, I feel like, to be alive in the United States. It feels like we're living in some type of really just crazy, I don't know, dystopian time where, there's massive job loss. Our healthcare system is just being overwhelmed by this coronavirus pandemic. And then you have, Trump out there talking about how we need to get people back to work and how he wants to see churches packed during Easter, and just completely just delving into the narcissism that is very representative of Donald Trump as a human being, unfortunately, and it being, echoed by, different conservative talking heads and whatnot. So it just feels like a very, just honestly, just kind of sad and depressing time to be alive. And it's hard not to just want to completely check out because of all the pain and suffering and death that so many people are, experiencing, or people they know are experiencing. Again, 3 million people lost their jobs last week. It's going to be even more this week, and probably more the week after that. And all the government can do is this really freaking weak and not nearly enough stimulus plan that disproportionately positively impacts business, while people are left with the crumbs. I mean, it's really, really disgusting. And basically, by the this $2 trillion stimulus, if that would have been given to the 150 million people that work in the U.S., it would have been over 13 grand. And again, let's say you make that a $4 trillion stimulus, everybody in the US could get 13 grand, and maybe do that again in another, I don't know, 2 or 3 months if needed, so people actually have enough money to put food on the table, to pay their rent, to pay their mortgages, to pay their car notes, whatever it may be, to pay their credit card payments, whatever it may be. That would have been a much better use of the money, giving it to the actual people who need it, instead of dumping trillions of dollars into these corporations and into Wall Street. But again, it's because our politicians, for the most part, are bought and paid for by those same corporate interests and corporate donors that they are doing the bidding of once they become elected. And again, I mean, it's just really clear why we actually need to elect politicians who actually stand up and fight for the working people, the average person in the US, and not just these corporate shills that do the bidding of the corporations because they're bought and paid for them. But don't want to get too much doom and gloom perspective or attitude going on, because I do see a lot of people going out of their way to help their neighbors, help their friends and family members during these times. So I think we need to, it can be kind of difficult, but we need to look for silver linings during these really stressful and depressing and scary times, and find ways to build community. If you have older friends or family or older neighbors, check in with them, see if when you go to the store, if they need you to pick up anything, you can do that for them. If you have extra food lying around your house, you can post it on the Buy Nothing group. That's what my partner has been doing. And we can all, if we're able to have the resources and time, to try to find ways to help each other out, because it's clear at this point the government is not doing nearly enough to help the actual people out during this time of crisis. And that's again really sick and disgusting. But then us as individuals, we can find ways to try to fill those gaps in the small ways that we are able to. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about some of the ways that you've been able to, engage in acts of mutual aid and solidarity to help each other out during this time. So I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment sections down below. Peace. Much love.